Hi, it's Josie, and you're listening to the Yoga Local podcast. Do you ever get depleted, right? If I could say that there was an energy reserve that you could tap into at any moment, plug into, reclaim your vitality, reclaim your sense of joy, really tap into like a wellspring of life force that just brings momentum to your life. Who would not want that, okay? Who would not want that? Well, it is something that we can tap into. We can all tap into. It's a problem that yoga is becoming a conversation just around perfecting postures, because it's really not the point. We create the shapes to master our minds, master our energy, and move ourselves into this wellspring of abundance and energy, source energy, as the yogis talk about it. And we can kind of demystify it a little bit, because when you start to, if you're not used to or in the yoga world, it can kind of sound a bit out there, but really what we're talking about is that natural flow of intelligence that's running through all things in life, keeping the sky above us and the earth beneath us, keeping the seasons moving from one to the other, the tides from flowing in and out, the sun to rise and set, the trees to shed their leaves, and the buds to grow into flowers. Like, there's intelligence flowing through everything. It's not disorganized, it's infinitely organized and infinitely correlating itself to make sure that we have a planet that we can live on and thrive in. And we are part of that energy conversation. Yoga teaches that we are part of that intelligence, and our job as yogis is to open ourselves up to the abundance, to the natural generosity of the universe, of life force energy flow, which contains all the information, all the healing, all the wisdom that we could ever possibly wish to understand and embody. So why are we not working towards that goal? I was told by my yoga teacher this week, actually reminded me to bring this up in conversation, because he was saying that if we sweat during our yoga practice, it's not a great strategy for becoming a vessel for energy, because we leak energy through our skin, through our sweat. So we want to be working in a way that builds our energy, but doesn't move us to a place of depletion. And if we're sweating in our practice, we are limiting our connection to our vital source, our prana. So that's something that, may be a complete game changer for you, maybe something that you've not considered before. And how do we get into proximity with that energy, that life source? My take on this is that we're going about our daily lives oblivious, completely unaware of being connected to this universal flow. Most of us are not awake to it, and I can speak to this because I haven't been in the past. It's not even something that we have conversations about, right? And it's only when we start to open ourselves up to possibilities that we start to see this natural order of giving and receiving in nature, that is something that we can also become a part of. And in fact, if we don't move into that natural order, if we resist, if we block off our access, that is when we start to find ourselves in a place of stagnation, of dis-ease. We're not feeling fulfilled. There's something not quite flowing right. We don't feel supported, and we feel separate. And that's the illusion that the yogis talk about. This sense of feeling separate is why we suffer. And actually, there's this abundant life force energy all around us that if we can just learn to master and access and draw from and use it to to fuel our growth, to fuel our personal development, to help us make better choices. If you've ever kind of like had to make a big decision in your life, where are you going to choose to make that decision? Are you going to make that decision from a place that is restricted, limited, doubtful, anxiety ridden? Or is that decision best made where in a place where you're feeling more spacious, more expansive, more able to feel yourself, and to be creative and to feel joyful? To me, it's a no-brainer. In order for us to thrive, we have got to learn to master our minds, we've got to learn to master our energy, and ultimately get to a place where we can be so pure of mind and powerfully charged that our actions are all working from this place of flow that's connected to something way more intelligent than our individual kind of mind. And when we talk about meditating, we're starting to create that right energetic environment for the mind to become still enough for it to orient our awareness to the higher parts of our existence. So the higher parts of our mind that are more in proximity to soul, to spirit, to source. Okay, and we have to kind of try and get past some of the different ways of expressing the same thing. Okay, our soul, our spirit, our source, being connected to a dynamic flow of energy that is self-supporting. And anything that we do that is outside of that flow is an obstacle. It's an obstacle, and we can get into obstacles, mental obstacles, emotional obstacles, our traumas, our experiences in life. They can all throw themselves up as obstacles in that energy flow that make us more and more constricted, more and more limited, and more separate from it. So the path of yoga is that pathway back to that abundant well of generosity that is life. Life is generous, life is free-flowing, life is indiscriminate, nature doesn't hoard, there's enough for everyone, and it's when we feel constricted and limited, or if we're in other energies, when maybe we're angry, jealous, maybe there's a sense of unworthiness, right? All that starts to become impossible for us to contemplate and get behind. So when we practice our postures, the idea is that we're practicing the postures in a way that can keep the mind steady, so that we're working in a way that is starting to create more energy, cultivate energy in the body, not start to deplete energy. So forget the sweating, become a container of energy. And then when we are in that space where our minds are stable and our bodies are fully charged, there's no holes in the bucket, fully charged, we can then start to better direct our attention into something that is more aligned with that natural energetic flow and the natural giving and receiving. Why are we here? What is our purpose? How are we meant to give? How are we meant to receive? What are we blocking? And what are we resisting? And ultimately, the purpose of yoga as a practice is to move us towards a state of meditation, which is union with that source energy. So meditation isn't just a relaxation technique or something to help us get a little bit more grounded or stable for just the sake of feeling stable. It has this bigger purpose of connecting us back to source, back to who we really are, back into that natural intelligence, that natural flow of giving and receiving. And then when we start to operate in that flow, then we feel vital, then we start to thrive, then we can be generous, because in being generous we're also receiving in that same generosity, and it's an infinite supply, right? The well never runs dry. So as yogis, as we practice, we learn to become generous. It's a part of It's a part of how we thrive. We get that in order to receive, we have to give, and in order to give, we have to receive. And that's what it is that's going to, that's what's essentially going to make us feel connected to who we are, connected to ourselves as a force of nature. Like when we're operating from a place where we're super clear on who we are, what we need to do, how we like give our wisdom, how we give our love, how we express ourselves, truly express ourselves authentically, like then we kind of, this whole saying of like shining your light, right? You see people, right? People who are in their element. Again, these words have come to our language by no accident. When we are in our element, nature's elements, we are made up of nature's elements. And when we're in our own element, like, it's palpable. We can see it and we get inspired by it. And then we inspire others to find their own path and their own light and give them permission to be giving of themselves, because they start to see the reciprocity also. I hope this is making sense. Because ultimately, yoga as a practice, the goal is oneness, the goal is union, the goal is feeling more ourselves, the goal is coming to remember who we are and being able to live and breathe and give and receive from that part of who we are, not the constricted part of who we are that's had a few knocks in life, that doubts itself, that worries about what other people think, that thinks that everything, there's not enough to go round, or that in some way they're not worthy of receiving. Meditation connects us to that divine source. It connects us to that infinite energy. It connects us to our potential to then go after our dreams, go after our soul-driven dreams, the ones that are aligned with who we are. They're part of that natural order, part of that natural flow. And that's the state of yoga. That when you're feeling 100% yourself, when you're feeling completely connected to something more powerful than just your own resources, your own kind of grit, and you've got the backing of the full force of nature behind you, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you haven't got energy for. You become unstoppable. And for us to just hang around in the area of working with asana and posture, just to have a more physically appealing body, is just something that I want us to kind of question and move beyond. It's great to have a strong body. We need a strong, powerful body. A lot of practices in yoga requires for being still for a lot of the time, and our bodies need to be strong enough to hold ourselves up without starting to complain, without the mind starting to spin, because honestly we're going into a subtle state. It becomes less about the body. The body has to be supporting us, but to the extent where that we can forget about it, we can turn our mind to higher experiences. We start to feel the energy in our body. We understand the vayus, the currents, the streams, the apana vayu, the grounding energy, the udana energy, the upward energy. Vayanu is expansive. And we can literally start to feel this in our body. When we start to sensitize to our energy in solar practice, which is our sun classes, you're literally sensing and feeling that as sensation in the body. And it's these experiences that then hook you into, the next experience. But you can't bypass. It is a process. We start with the asana, we start with working with the body and getting it stable and into certain shapes. But then we've got to learn to master the mind in order to keep our breath ratios super, super smooth and clean and clear. And then that helps to then slow down the mind, and it allows us to really direct our energy more specifically and reconnect to consciousness itself and self-awareness and the potential of who we are when we're connected to that source power, that infinite well of vitality and knowledge and information. It's it's a lofty goal, but I think what's happened in the yoga world is that it's almost become something that we consider as not for ordinary people, not for people who like us, who have jobs, who have families, who work. It's like seen as just something that for the ancients, something that's not obtainable for all of us, and it's a real frustration of mine because it's totally accessible to everyone, and the yogis wanted us to explore it and go there. The trouble is, it does take commitment, it does take consistency, it does take a process that will move you from one stage to the next, and there's no shortcuts to this, but the rewards are immeasurable. The rewards are immeasurable. We can transform our whole lives. We can feel more vital, feel more whole, feel more fulfilled when we feel ourselves. So I'm going to encourage you to just think about your practice as this glorious way of moving into a state where you are able to tap into like this infinite well of vitality, connection, joy, space, bliss, peace. It's not spaced out, it's not passive, it's not it's not something like to kind of escape from the world, although you may feel like you do, but it's going to enable you to participate in the world, right? More fully, more yourself, and that's like the gold at the end of this journey. The gold is being yourself. The gold is being able to live your life with no regrets. To feel supported and not doubting yourself. I hope this is kind of landing in some way, because I know how much it takes us away from the, yoga for lengthening your hamstrings, yoga for improving your digestion, yoga for quietening the mind, right? All of those things yoga does. But the bigger story is it does these things because the pathway is towards yoga, union, connection with yourself, right? So if your hamstrings are more flexible, the energy flow is going to be more fluid, right? All the nurturance, all the nourishment that is available to us will start to flow more readily through us. There'll be no blockages, there'll be no obstructions. Digestion, same, okay? If we're not fully digesting our foods or our experiences, there is going to be a sense of dis-ease, discomfort. And we need to remove that obstacle. Yoga does that. If we want to quieten our mind, if we're kind of constantly stressed out, yoga will quiet the mind. So just be careful that you're not just considering, or you're considering all these fragmented offers of yoga and forgetting that there's this much bigger prize that we can all work to, and meditation is that culmination of our practice that's going to move us into these more subtle experiences and help us live from that well of abundance that the yogis promise and speak about. So a few things I've listed in this blog to help like everyday folks, right? Not yogic practitioners necessarily, start to like tap into generosity as a way of remembering that life is innately generous. You are innately generous. So a few things. First of all, practice gratitude. We can reflect on a daily basis. It doesn't have to take, it doesn't have to take a whole journaling exercise. We can just be in our car and just take a moment to reflect on things that we were grateful for, the people, the experiences, the the subtle coincidences that help lead us into a new understanding of a situation or help us propel us forward in our life, right? Let's start to notice those things as a way of like remembering just how abundant life can be. Acts of kindness is the second one. So start to give yourself, right? Start to spread that kindness and love out there. It's an energetic giving, which starts to feed the space around you, the people around you. So in your gestures, in your smiles, and how you meet and greet people, right? You are this conduit of energy. Pass on good energy. Be kind. Listen. So be open to receiving as well as like putting your voice out there all the time. Are you a really good listener? Can you be that conduit for someone else? And truly listen and open up your heart without trying to add your own experience, your own flavoring. Just be there without judgment. That's a really tricky thing to do, by the way. Share your knowledge. Again, nature doesn't hoard. Don't hoard your knowledge. Share your wisdom. Get it out there. If you're a teacher and you're like scared of getting online or being on video, like the tradition would say, like you're withholding the skills and the qualities and the things that you were born with. You're withholding that, and there's a blockage in the flow. So start sharing your wisdom. Volunteer. That's a great way of starting to be in that flow of giving and receiving. Volunteer, help others out. Practice self-compassion. We are our worst critics, and we can block ourselves way more readily than someone else can. So we're our biggest block. So let's knock out any self-criticism and all that negative self-talk and the criticisms that we can play out in our head. Again, our practices are there to help us find that space. Okay, so if you're finding these things like difficult, that is when your practice helps. It starts to give you the tools to do this work. Be mindful of your resources. So manage your resources. Like it's the same thing. Like if you're like working all day, really super hard, you're juggling kids, demands from your parents, maybe work commitments, and then you're adding on a super stressful practice that is depleting your energy. That is going to put you in reverse in terms of being to access those higher states of awareness and have a good successful meditation. So just start to be mindful of where your energy is at. Sometimes we need those practices that get the cardio going and get the heart going, but think of that as a physical practice that's getting your body well and strong. It's not your yoga practice, right? Don't use your yoga practice in that way. Use your yoga practice to build and contain and direct your energy a little bit more skillfully. Express appreciation, let people know, express, right, in that giving and receiving, express how you're feeling, show how much you care, don't hold back. Sometimes, I know from personal experience, I can feel a little too much, right, and give too much, and it can be difficult. Don't lose your boundaries, of course, but don't let your fears get in the way of you being you and how you want to express yourself in the world. You want to be free to open yourself up in that way. In the same way, opening up your heart and allowing that inner peace to then flow out. And, peace begets peace, right? In a state of rage, anger, not a lot gets done in that state, not a lot gets resolved. We lose a lot of our energy and we lose our connection to ourselves, right? Many a time I've been that angry person and you just don't recognize yourself in those moments. It's not who you are. So we need to start cultivating more open heart and find more peace so that we can flow that peace out into the world. And and be keen to to challenge yourself, to read, to study, to learn, to explore, to take on new ideas. We get, when we're looking at that flow and of generosity of life and nature, we can see that any blockage that we put in the way is going to prevent us from seeing something from a new perspective or a new dimension. So be open to new ideas. That doesn't mean you have to kind of like take on board everything someone else says, but experiment with it. When you come to your practice, like, take the teachings, understand why they're there, but then go in and do the work yourself and have that experiential experience, if that makes sense. In other words, like, be open to reading books and studying, but then like, you need to go in and practice, you need to go in and do the work, and then that will put you on the next platform for taking the next bit of knowledge, the next bit of wisdom. And it's that constant ability to refresh and renew and update, and not get stuck in pathways that are outdated, that maybe feel comfortable. Right? We've got comfortable with a certain way of doing things, maybe we've got comfortable with a certain way of understanding something, but it closes us off to something that may be more beneficial, or may take us into a new understanding or help us elevate an existing one. So lots of reading and learning, and just remember, generosity isn't just a trait that we have, she's really generous, he's really generous. It's a way of life that we can cultivate and adopt, and we need to nurture it, we need to develop it, and we can do that through our practices, by becoming more aware of the giving and the receiving in our breath, the giving and the receiving of the different muscle groups in the body, one contracting, one relaxing. Everything is kind of opening up and closing, and giving and receiving, and just starting to weave that understanding into what you're doing is just going to elevate your practice into something that's something very physical, very methodical, very mechanical, and it's going to start to move you into those more subtle, more joyful, more heartfelt experiences that you can't make that stuff up. It's not something you can intellectualize. It's not something you can read from a book. You have to go in there, and you have to feel things and see them and be with them for some time. So as I said, it's not for the faint of heart, yoga. It's for the committed. It's for those people who are really like ready to make this journey, and are curious and want the adventure, and know it's going to be a little bit bumpy along the way, but the end result is going to be like an amazing life that you can really look back on and go, I did the best version of me throughout, and no regrets. So if you're eager to kickstart your journey, if you would like to know more about what we do here and how we teach, and start your own yoga path, right? Don't get overwhelmed at the beginning. There's a lot to learn, and know that there is a structure that we offer here that will move you forward in a way that is sustainable, right? We can't absorb everything at once, so we need things to be introduced to us at the right times, in the right order, and kind of a piecemeal approach. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for the things that will get you to where you want to be, then check us out, talk to me, send me a comment, email me, whatever you need to do, get in touch, and I'd love to see you in class soon. Bye for now.